All right. I start a minute early this week, so you can stop heckling me for being late there, woman. Love you. Hey guys, it's time for the Brushfire Mind. It is 2000 on a Sunday evening, and in particular, this Sunday is April Fool's Day and Easter, which is kind of weird. Oh, I hope you got a chuckle out of the thumbnail. Jesus coming out of the cave. Oh, just kidding. April Fools. So, being Easter Sunday, I thought we would talk about why America needs Jesus. All right. So, I don't typically talk about my faith. I take it very personally. I keep it pretty privately for the most part. There are a few people that I'll discuss faith with in a very real way. I'm not going to talk about my faith a whole lot tonight. I'm going to talk about Christianity. If you missed it, what I just said is I'm not a Christian, but I am about to pose to you the argument that Christianity is excruciatingly important for this country. And any country where it has a foothold. Now, I would like to begin that argument with the premise that religion generally is good for a country. Even bad religions are, to a point, good for a country. I will even make a subtle defense of Islam, but not much of one, on purpose, and I'll get to that in a minute. America, I'm not going to sit here and argue that America was founded as a Christian nation. That is incorrect. Christianity was an influence, yes. Many of the founders were atheists and agnostics. I have a hard time with atheists. I really do. We live in a world where things move. And I'm not pretending like this is an original thought here. I'm regurgitating the arguments of I'm about to be regurgitating the arguments of St. Anselm of Canterbury, of Aristotle from the Aristotelian metaphysics. But I have a hard time with atheists because the argument of a hard atheist, of what has been called a hostile atheist, and you know, I'm sorry, I've forgotten the guy's name now that made the argument about the hostile and friendly atheists. I'll find the name and I'll link him in the description below later so you can read up on it a little more. Anyway, the argument that is made by the atheist is that there is no God. Anselm of Canterbury, Thomas Aquinas, and even Aristotle posed the argument for the existence of God. And that is that, or one of them, the cosmological argument is that things move. Things move because they are moved. Nothing just moves on its own. My hands moving so that I can gesticulate is a function of my neurosystem responding to my brain thoughts and giving commands to these grabbing things to do grabbing motions and to gesticulate and whatnot. Oh yeah, Julie, I'm getting to that. That is a large crux of the argument I'm making. So, things are moved. Things get moved. But there must be, in order to avoid the pitfalls of an infinite regress, for my absent the logical tolerance of an infinite regress, we are trapped with turtles all the way down, or more frighteningly, causes all the way up. Given that nature abhors the concept, nature and logicians rightly abhor the concept of an infinite regress, there must be a cause which is itself uncaused, a mover which is itself unmoved. The Aristotelian concept of the first mover did not necessarily suggest that that first mover was sentient or even a being, a life form as we could understand it. And the rebuttals by people like Hume to the cosmological argument aren't even really, they're not really a rebuttal of the cosmological argument, but pointing out that when guys like Anselm and Aquinas say there must be a God because there must be a first cause, they point out, well, logically guaranteeing that there must be a first cause does not identify that first cause as being specifically the Christian capital G God. Little aside, by the way, for the smartasses that like to go out of their way to put a lowercase g there because they think they're somehow being disrespectful. Clue you in real quick. Lowercase g God is like lowercase h human. Okay? It is the species. When you're talking about the Christian God and you capitalize it, this is not a form of respect. It is grammatically correct because the word capital G-O-D is his name. If you were to write my name, Chris, with a lowercase c, you're not disrespecting me. You're not insulting me. I feel sorry for you because your English is bad. So, that aside, the argument typically made against the existence of a God by an atheist presupposes that God must be a triple O God, an omniscient, omnibeneficent, omnipresent God. That God must, and omnipotent. How did I leave that out? But the argument against the existence of God presupposes that God must be all-loving, all-knowing, and all-powerful. And the argument that they pose is this. If there is suffering in the world, if there is preventable suffering in the world, then God cannot be all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful. There's a rebuttal, and I'm so sorry I've blanked on the guy's name. I feel like I owe a philosophy professor a deep apology. But my favorite argument against that is, okay, how about this? Let's reverse your premises. If there is preventable evil in the world, then God cannot be all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful. Conclusion, therefore, there is no preventable evil in the world. Which is actually a reasonable premise, a reasonable argument to support. It is not difficult to argue that preventable evil is an important definition. It may be the case that in order for that terrible earthquake that killed all those people to not have occurred, then another greater disaster must have occurred somewhere else. The problem with this series of arguments against the existence of a God generally, by presupposing the God's particular attributes, is that you must also presuppose a certain amount of extraordinary, extemporaneous knowledge beyond that there are harms that occur in the world. We know that bad things happen, but to say that bad things happen is not the same as being able to say those bad things can be prevented. So I have a hard time with atheists because they're standing on very, very shaky ground. Especially atheists that are hard science atheists. Because It is easier to argue proof of God than it is to argue proof of the Big Bang Theory. Anybody who says different is not well educated on the subject. The Big Bang Theory is based entirely on supposition. Oh, but there are these images with a bunch of background noise where clearly the telescopes can't see any farther, and over distance we see back in time. And over distance we see back in time to a thing which all you can tell me about it is you can't see past that point. There's no other argument to be made there. The blanket of white noise at the edge of visible space, at the edge of even radar visible space, is unintelligible. The only thing we can know for sure about it is that it is a limitation on our capacity to observe the universe beyond us. To say that is somehow a stronger argument for an understanding of the nature of the cosmos than an argument for the existence of a first mover is unintelligible. So let's get to why religion matters, and build that into why Christianity matters in America. And I promise this is going to lead into a conversation about the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, David Hogg, the Children's March, and all of that. And Roseanne, because holy crap did she surprise us all. So the fact of the matter is that religion, even if the morals of any given religion are not perfect, religion, its practice, its study, and its attendance are the most effective vehicle that we have available to us to transmit morality to our children. So, we live now in a society which has grown more and more secular, grown further and further away from faith, and become exponentially more tyrannical and less interested in liberty than our forebears. Interestingly, that maneuver has also required our children to just get dumber. David Hogg's statement that generations before his just don't know what it's like to have an AR-15 pointed at them. Oh my God. Child, you unerringly inept child. Look here, David Hogg. The generations before you don't know what it's like to have a firearm pointed at them. Don't know what it's like to be on the wrong side of a weapon. He literally made the statement, because we're survivors of a school shooting, we're experts on the subject. Oh, let's see. I graduated from Heritage High School in 2000. I was at Heritage High School 1 month to the day after the Columbine shooting, when Heritage High School was the next school shooting. What happened? A kid who was bullied and felt like an outcast decided that he would steal mommy and daddy's guns and go murder a bunch of people. Does that make me an expert on firearms? No, it doesn't. What does make me an expert on firearms, you incompetent little shitburger, is that I am a U.S. Army combat veteran of the war in Afghanistan. I have been on both sides of that rifle, and I am an expert in the weapon systems of the U.S. military arsenal. And I am here to tell you, sweetheart, that guns do not kill people. That AR-15 didn't sprout legs and walk up and down the hall and hunt you. No. the psychopath child that you bullied and demeaned and hated retaliated because you abused a psychopath. And he was able to do it successfully because the government to whom you wish to overturn our rightful equipment, our rightfully owned weapons, failed you as miserably as a government has ever failed. And let me be clear about this. The Second Amendment does not give us the right to keep and bear arms. Let me say that again so that you heard it clearly. The Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America does not confer unto citizens the right to keep and bear arms. The right of the individual, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed and is enumerated in the Bill of Rights because the right to keep and bear arms, like the first mover, pre-exists the government, the Constitution, and even human life itself. The right to keep and bear arms, like the right to free speech, the right to freedom of religion, the right to privacy. And we can go through all 10 if we need to. I don't think we're gonna go that far tonight, but the right to keep and bear arms is our right that we own as humans by the nature of being humans. God or no God, government or no government, in a state of nature, a man has a right to keep and carry a means of self-defense, of the waging of war when need be, to defend himself against a possibly tyrannical encroachment, to defend himself against any form of tyranny, whether that tyranny be a government that has decided to start locking kids up for making Nazi pug videos in Scotland. Okay, I'm trying to keep the language, cleaned up to a minimum for this one, largely because I expect to have a few more religious watchers than I usually do. But just a quick aside, I mentioned the Nazi pug. A few of my favorite YouTube personalities include a guy called Baring, and he started referring to Count Dankula, the Scottish comedian who was recently convicted of the crime of hate speech for making a video about a pug doing the Hitler salute whenever he says Sig Heil. And Baring has started calling Count Dankula fuckhead McHitler dog, and every time I hear it, I just about wet myself laughing. So, ooh, yes. Fuckhead McHitler dog. Shoo, buddy. This is chock full of nuts, by the way, because I think I'm out of Kona. But, Edward, if you're listening, we sent you some Kona. I say we, I mean Sergeant Major, but, you know, we love you, little brother. Love you a lot. So, these kids, man, I think I've adequately made the case for the need for religion as a vehicle for morality. So, let me slide over to Christianity as the preferred religion to be the vehicle for morality. I'm going to start by making my brief case against Christianity as a religion for my own personal choices. I'm not trying to talk anybody into or out of Christianity. But I personally have a few issues, and those are, I abhor the concept of original sin, the concept of absolution, and the practice of proselytization. So those are my three problems. I reject the precept of original sin. I hold absolutely that children are born clean and innocent, and that no man should bear the debts incurred by his forebears. It's the same reason it's the same reason I absolutely reject the concept of reparations. We must not enter into a cycle where children bear the debts of their forebears. We're there. I mean, it does happen. It is immoral to lay the wages of the father's sins on the backs of his sons. Immoral, unacceptable, and I will not have it. Absolution. Forgiveness is an after effect. One should never be forgiven until they have made whole the victim of their sin. So, like the idea of forgiving a debt. Let's say Buddy Boy owes me $100, and he does me a favor that's worth $100. He helps me move house, maybe. That's kind of a weird. I can't think of a better example right now. I mean, if we move house, I know my boys will help me out, and basically I'll buy pizza and beer, and that'll work. And I know they expect the same of me, and rightly so, because I'm more than happy to lend them the use of my pick-em-up truck and my strong back for pizza and beer. They're my boys. I love them. You know, proud of you, boys. Proud of you. And that's for all my P-Battle out there, too. But let's just say it's somebody that owes me $100 and I don't know, they're not part of the assembled horde, as it were. Yeah, you come and do me a favor, and I might say, hey man, don't worry about the $100, right? That is a legitimized forgiveness. Fen, okay, so hey, welcome to the audience, Fen. Glad to have you. You're right, dear. Thin crust pizzas and fancy drinks. Well, Fen, that's the case I'm making. I'm not making the case that we need to believe in Jesus. I'm making the case that America at large needs Jesus, and there is a subtle difference, but it is not a difference without a distinction. Keep with me for a minute. So where was I before the chattering monkeys in the peanut gallery distracted me? Oh, so absolution. We can. I'm comfortable with forgiving debts that are settled. That's absolutely cool. But does one forgive a man who has harmed him in a way that can't be repaired? Like, for example, a psychopath with a firearm walking down the halls of a school and murdering my children. No. No. The wages of sin is death. Put him down. As Rorschach said, men get arrested. Dogs get put down! There are things that cannot be forgiven. Murder cannot be forgiven. Rape cannot be forgiven. Okay? Now, does hate speech rise to the level of violence and sin? Certainly not. I will draw a distinction between hate speech and abusive speech. Abusive speech is targeted, intentional, and frankly effective. That is not an endorsement of it, but as somebody with a little experience with psychological warfare, that is, shall we say, a recognition of it. So, we've heard lots and lots about the Parkland shooting. That boy needed some Jesus. I mean, that boy needed some Jesus. And so do these shithead kids that are walking out on the school. Okay? We had a shooting just after that in Maryland. Nobody wants to talk about Maryland. We're not hearing anything about Maryland. Why aren't we hearing anything about Maryland? Nobody died except for the bad guy. 2 kids were shot, hurt bad. And I could be wrong, but the last I checked the news feed, they were still alive and doing good. So, hopes and prayers and all that. But guess what? They don't need hopes and prayers as bad as the 17 dead bodies in Parkland. And they don't need those hopes and prayers because instead, they had a good guy with a gun to return fire. Shoo, buddy. Here we go, another White Hats Matter segment. Heartwarming tales of death and destruction, where we examine the lawful defense of self and others. That's right, a good guy with a gun, and it wasn't quite a DRT, not quite a DRT, but the bad guy's dead, and that matters. Wow, Julie, if we could unmurder people, that just might get interesting. I could see like a whole pay-per-view sports series based on that premise. That might be the next TV show that I pitch to the Sci-Fi Channel. Also, if somebody makes that TV show on the Sci-Fi Channel, I'm going to come and sue you because I totally just talked about it on a recorded stream. Ha ha! So, thank you, baby. Dead murderers don't murder people, dead rapists don't rape people, and dead terrorists don't blow up frickin' buildings. It's that simple. That's not hard. The eye for an eye, the tooth for a tooth, that's Old Testament. I think that's solid. So, Christianity does, despite my 3 problems with it that I've laid out now, it does preach the 10 Commandments. Now, I can do without the first 4. They're not relative to my worldview. I'm sorry, they're not relevant to my worldview. I take number 5 very seriously. Honor thy mother and father. And an old Orthodox Jewish buddy of mine explained the 10 Commandments to me one time. The first 5 are the commandments of behavior between man and God. And the last 5 are the commandments of behavior between man and man. I find it interesting that the commandments between man and God include number 5, honor thy mother and father. And I'm totally comfortable with that. To step back real quick to the idea of causers and movers and first causes, your mother and father are in your list of causes. They are your efficient causes. Oh, Jesus. Material causes, efficient causes. Yeah, efficient causes. They are the reason you exist. Honor thy mother and father. It is not just that they are your predecessors. It is not just that they are aged before you. but you are them. Yes, dear. Yes. We brought them into this world, and sometimes it's deeply tempting to take them out. And that's why we do push-ups. That's why we search the carpet, the old shag carpet, for discipline with our faces. But anyway, so the last 5 are between man and man. You know, thou shalt not murder. I don't like it when I see the commandments listed as thou shalt not kill. That is incorrect. Okay. Old Testament. 10 Commandments are Old Testament. Thou shalt not kill. Incorrect. Thou shalt not murder. You pop on back to Genesis 6, and God is very clear. He whosoever shed the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for in his image made he man. So, it is not thou shalt not kill, it is thou shalt not murder. A good guy with a gun, a police officer, a school resource officer in the right place, putting down a dog with a gun, is correct. But the rest of them, do not covet your neighbor's wife. No. Don't come into my house, buddy. That's just, I trust my wife implicitly and completely, so I'm not too worried about that. So yeah, come knocking on this door at the wrong time of night. You'll be lucky if I shoot you. So, yes, translations through how many different languages and cultures. Julie, that's a fair point. And that's one of the reasons that I make I think it's important to make the distinction between kill and murder. And I'm about to get to Buddhism and why that is not a correct answer for America, in the same way that Christianity is. So, Christianity, first point, the first reason that Christianity is good for America is it is already here. There's not a need to do a great deal of infrastructural or functional work to establish it and put it into the system. Christianity gives us the 10 Commandments: thou shalt not murder, respect mommy and daddy, don't covet thy neighbor's wife or property, don't lie, don't steal. Not hard. Okay. So, that enumeration of individual crimes is solid. If I had my druthers, I would prefer that we taught crime in this way. Crime is harm. The only crime is murder. Nothing that is not murder is crime. Rape is murder to a degree. Theft is murder to a degree. Murder is the taking of someone's life without cause, whether or not it's for profit. Rape takes a piece of someone's life. Theft, you are taking property for which someone traded life. Murder is the only crime. All lesser crimes are murder by lesser degrees. And murder should be met with death. Murderers should be executed. I have no interest in capital punishment. I am interested in capital precaution. Punishment is something that you do when an infraction is committed and poor behavior is exhibited in order to correct the behavior. Punishment is pain from which we learn. When a drill sergeant makes you do push-ups, when mom or your daddy spank you with a switch, when they send you to the principal's office to get a paddle, back in America before we turned into this commie wasteland that we're slowly delving into through secularism. So, if we teach crime in that way, for one, we'd have to legalize all the drugs. Sorry. And we might just have to respect the value of individual human lives. Christianity is by nature pro-life. I have known several women who had abortions, and it has made me think less of them. Sorry, guys, but it has. And I'm not going to dwell on that issue, but I just wanted to mention it for a minute. Damn, y'all got me in pensive mode for a minute there. Whew. Okay. Y'all got me in pensive mode for a minute there. Hey woman, where was I? Ten Commandments, transmission of morality, physical exercises, push-ups. Our children, capital punishment. Murderers must die. The wages of sin is death. The wages of sin is not death because we want people to learn from punishment. It is a precautionary measure. Okay? The reason capital punishment, or as I prefer to call it, capital precaution, is important and effective if the risk... Think about this. All criminal enterprises are business transactions at some level. Even a murder of passion, even a murder in the heat of the moment, is a transactional decision. You risk the consequences of being caught against the reward that follows the actions. So, you choose to sell drugs, for example, where it is illegal to do so. You run the risk of being incarcerated or fined, but it's a risk that you take because there is a financial reward on the other side of it. Just like when you take a loan to open a small business, you run the risk of that business failing and you being unable to repay that loan, having to declare bankruptcy, and being, at least to some degree, ruined by the harm that was incurred when the risk manifested. If the risk is not sufficiently high, it will not deter the pursuit of the reward. Capitalism is a great system precisely because it allows us to take risk. We can choose to take greater risk against greater reward. Why are lottery tickets only $1? Because the chance of your reward is astronomically high. I'm sorry, the chance against you earning that or receiving that award is astronomically high compared to the minuscule risk. You buy a $1 lottery ticket and you don't win $350 million when it's drawn. You have risked very little against a huge reward, but against astronomical probability. Now, when you take a large, let's say you take $50,000, you throw it in the stock market on a stock that has performed reasonably well, with the expectation that over 10 years it will return 2 to 4 times your investment. That is a much smaller risk against a smaller reward. Okay, this is base level game theory. Okay, if you choose to take the risk of dying by capital punishment in order to commit crime, then we will have two things. We will have a better class of criminal. I mean that is part of it. You increase the market stability, and in that market, in a more stabilized market, the need for that market to generate higher quality product will cause higher rates of competition to force instability to generate higher risk, because reward does not come without risk. I teach you. I'm afraid I stopped reading the comments a while ago, guys, so y'all are just talking to yourselves now. Fewer thugs and more kingpins. Yes, and eventually you'll have too many Indians in the kitchen, my little squaw. You know, I've only ever got the one Indian in the kitchen, and she seems to do great work. So I think that's good math. Anyway, so I've rambled on and on about a lot of definitions. The base morality of Christianity is good. It's solid. It's reasonable. And the religion itself, you cannot transmit morality through a secular education. You can't. Because a secular education, in a world that worships at the altar of multiculturalism, presupposes moral relativism. Which means that if your distinct social norm says that tossing gays off the side of the building is the right and moral thing to do in the eyes of God, then to the secular, multicultural, moral relativist, you are not wrong for you. And your truth, no, shit on your truth. I am a proud Western chauvinist, and I refuse to apologize for not murdering gays by throwing them off of buildings. Thank you very much. But wait a minute. Nope, not but. Christianity doesn't do that. It's not written in the book. Oh, Leviticus. Yeah, Leviticus. Okay, so Jews. Leviticus. Seems to me like Jesus said, I am the way, the word and the truth, or something like that. I'm the new law. And that is supposed to be the argument for tolerance of homosexuals, throwing Leviticus out the window. I'm good with that. That works. That's fair. Frankly, on the issue of homosexuality, I just don't care. You do what you want to do with whom you want to do it with, as long as you don't make them do it by force at the point of your death threat. So we could chuck Leviticus, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't read it. You know, the histories are important. But let's talk about the other religions. Expletives, dear IT folks, please fix it. That was all washed clean with the crucifying of the Christ. Anyway, let me hit the other religions for a minute. Of those available, my druthers would be, or just my absolute preference would be to go to a general old Celtic religion with a very strict but simple code of morality. That's not going to happen. So we're going to look at the available options. Judaism, Islam. Now, obviously, Christianity is the one we have and the one that I prefer we stick with. Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, and that's about the end of it. I would list Confucianism, but frankly, it's just not as it's just not going to happen in America. Buddhism, I'd give it a maybe. If you pushed it, you could make it happen, but I don't see it happening. Islam can take root anywhere because it's kill or convert. I mean, they're essentially the same as the necromongers from the Chronicles of Riddick. Hi, love my God or I'll murder you in the face. No, thank you. Judaism would be my preference, absent Christianity. If we didn't have Christianity already in place and as an option, I'd be okay with going to Judaism. And I won't even honestly make an argument against Judaism being the common religion. And notice I have not said state religion. And I'll end up talking about the First Amendment in just a little more in just a second here. But I have not said state religion, and for a reason. But Judaism, essentially, I have the same issues, except for proselytization. They don't seem to do that much. You have to choose to go into Judaism, unlike Christianity, where they're actively trying to claw you in. Yes, Julie, necromongers, Riddick. That's right. You keep what you kill. I would actually be pretty comfortable with that, personally. But that's not a great way to transmit morality to the youth. Islam. Here's the problem. In the United States of America, unlike every other country on the planet, the First Amendment guarantees that it forbids Congress from stopping our religions. The First Amendment reads, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, the First Amendment is quite importantly distinct from the Second Amendment, and that distinction is Congress shall make no law. Congress, the federal government, is not allowed, under the Constitution of the United States, to make a law establishing respecting the establishment of a religion, so on and so forth. Now, the 10th Amendment guaranteeing that any rights not enumerated within the Constitution are retained to the states and respectively to the people there beneath, that seems to suggest that state by state, a state government could establish, like we could have the Church of Georgia, and that would actually be acceptable under the First Amendment, although the Georgia State Constitution doesn't have any room for that. But the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free people, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. Doesn't say anything about the Congress shall make no law. It doesn't say who shall not infringe. It says shall not be infringed. Full stop, no caveats, no exceptions. Molon Labe, come and get 'em. Islam is not compatible with the First Amendment. The religion of Islam has a political wing, has a political component, and that is called Sharia law. Islam has strict penalties for blasphemy, which are detailed and pretty much mean death. And it also has a mechanism for enslavement, taxing second-class citizens, and defining the second-class citizen. The tax is called a jizya, and the second-class citizen is defined as non-Muslim. The second-class citizen are the people of the book, as they call them, and that's Christians and Jews. If you're not a person of the book, then you're not even allowed to pay the jizya and survive along as a second-class citizen. You're put to death. Islam does not respect the freedom of women or even that they should have agency. So between shutting out the 14th Amendment protection of equal treatment under the law, the First Amendment protection of free speech, freedom of religion, and the freedom to assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances, Islam is not compatible with Western culture, and most especially not compatible with American culture. Buddhism. We're capitalists. On the face of it, Buddhism doesn't work for America because we're capitalists. And a large component of Buddhism is the kind of respect of poverty. More importantly, however, as I make the argument that the importance of religion is the vehicle for morality to the children, Buddhism is a religion not of peace, which is not to say that it's not a peaceful religion, it very much is, but it is a religion of pacifism. Not all Buddhists are pacifists. You got your Shaolin monks. I'm trained in Shaolin. I love my Shaolin brothers. And they have fought bloody wars to protect themselves, to defend themselves from tyrannical governments, so on and so forth. But as a religion, it is one of pacifism. And here is my word on pacifism. Pacifism is the opposite of decency. To chain oneself to the idea of pacifism as an absolute is to assert the argument that there is no thing which has value sufficient to protect it with violence. I've got a hot young wife and 3 kids upstairs that can get you killed real quick for looking at them the wrong way. Let me tell you something. If you do not believe there are things in this world, if there are not things in your life whose value to you is not sufficient that you would protect it with terminal violence, then you love nothing. And love, the love that makes a man get out of bed in the morning and go create the Western world, the love that makes a good guy with a gun draw a weapon and put down a dog to protect innocent children, the love that makes a soldier walk little girls to school under arms because the enemy will mutilate them if they're caught unguarded. That love is what makes man strong and good. Pacifism is the opposite of decency. From a moral standpoint, I would much rather see the adoption of the NAP, the non-aggression principle. And here it is. Never initiate force. Man comes up to you with a knife in his hand and says, "Give me your wallet." Yeah, put 3 in his face. Done. Call the police. This man tried to stab me and I killed him in the face. I need somebody to come clean this shit up while I polish my gun and put it back in the holster, because I should not even be questioned. I may have come to the end of that rant. So yeah, Islam doesn't cut it, doesn't work. Okay, and my wife just said, "I'd die for you." Great. No, we're both dead, you ninny. That's adorable. Let me back that up. I am not willing to die for anyone or anything. A little bit ago, I was talking about what risk is. Even when I deployed for the Army, I went to Afghanistan. I toted a rifle. I got shot at. I got bombed at. I saw some shit. Right? I had a blast. I loved what I did over there. I thoroughly enjoyed my time downrange. But as much as I love to run into a gunfight, or to get in a cage match, or to step into a ring and box, even driving a fast car, I am not willing to die for anything or anybody. What I am happy to do is to assume the risk. Okay? I will not give my life away. I will not throw my life away arbitrarily. Will I jump in front of the wife or the kids to catch a bullet? Yes, in full knowledge that it might be the end of me. But what I am doing is I am taking the calculated risk that I know my interests are protected, whether or not I incur the actual harm of that risk. So the old, I think it was Patton. It's not your job to die for your country, or sorry. Nobody ever did anything by dying for his country. Your job is to make that other sorry son of a bitch die for his. Yes, absolutely. Will I risk my life? Sure. I will risk my life to do the right thing. But it seems like a difference without a distinction, but it's not. So I think I've covered everything. I've made the point. Okay, yeah. So this country needs some Jesus. David Hogg and his ilk, they need some Jesus. Okay? And no, you sniveling little shit. Surviving a school shooting makes you an expert on precisely nothing. Surviving a couple of school shootings might make you an expert on surviving school shootings. But if you want to be an expert on firearms and the law, you need to practice and study. I know you're just a kid. You're just a shithead kid. You just don't know stuff yet. You don't know anything yet. You're going to be amazed at how very little you know. I know. I remember. When I was 12, I thought, nope. I thought I knew a lot. But I just wasn't as dumb as you are. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that works. I don't know how you made it to be a grown-ass adult, because you are. At 17 years old, you should be a grown-ass man. You should get a job. You should get a fucking job and read a book. Not a sports page, not a magazine. Read a book, son. And read your Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I've got for this week. Happy April Fool's Day. Happy Easter. Go get you some Jesus. Go love your neighbor. Don't be pacifists. And until next week, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, share this shit with everybody you know. I love you. I can't wait to see you again next week. And remember, until I hit that button again on Sunday at 8, if you build a man a fire, you'll keep him warm for the evening. But if you set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life.